That afternoon, clouds hung over the sky in a small town called Lanjutpaji. A young man named Nara was walking along the worn sidewalk on Jalan Melati when a sudden downpour began. Without an umbrella and wearing only a thin denim jacket, he hurried to find shelter. It was around a bend in the street that he saw an old shop with a wooden sign that read, Reno's Shop, Antiques and Stories of the Past. Attracted by the name, Nara opened the slightly creaking glass door and entered. A warm breeze greeted him, accompanied by the aroma of old wood and black coffee. Behind a wooden counter strewn with knickknacks stood a man of medium build with partially gray hair and sharp, inquisitive eyes. Welcome. Need shelter? Or looking for something? The man greeted. Nara smiled awkwardly. Both, perhaps. And so began the meeting between Nara and Reno, the shop owner, who seemed to be more than just a caretaker of antiques. The shop was no ordinary shop. In every corner were objects from the past, old typewriters, analog cameras, vinyl records, and bronze pocket watches. But what made Nara feel at home wasn't just the items, but the stories that accompanied them. Reno had a story for every object. For example, a pocket watch from 1901 that belonged to a colonial soldier who never returned from the war. Or an old typewriter said to have been used by a famous romance novelist who was later lost to time. That day, Nara had only intended to seek shelter, but she sat for hours listening to Reno tell stories, sipping hot coffee made by the shop owner. When the rain stopped, she almost didn't want to leave. Come back when you have time, Reno said with a smile. My shop is open, but only to those who truly want to learn about the past. In the following days, Nara began to regularly stop by Reno's shop. For some reason, every time she came, Reno always had something new and a new story. Until one afternoon, Reno showed Nara something that surprised her, an old wooden framed photograph of a young woman who looked exactly like her mother. Who is this? Nara asked, her hands trembling. She used to come here often, before this shop became mine. Her name was Mira, Reno answered quietly. Nara paused. That name was her mother's. But how could that old photograph be in Reno's shop? And how long had her mother known about this place? Reno didn't answer directly, but from that moment on, he began to tell more stories that felt personal, about how he once fell in love, about loss, and about a woman who changed his perspective on life. Chapter 4. Searching for answers. Nara began to investigate. She questioned her mother, who was surprised but reluctant to talk about the past. She looked up archives about Reno's shop, which turned out to have been around for over 50 years. But strangely, Reno didn't seem that old. Something was off, as if the shop and its owner weren't living on the same timeline as the outside world. Chapter 5. Choice. In the midst of her search, Reno gave Nara a small teakwood box. Inside were a letter, a key, and a non-ticking pocket watch. The letter was written in her mother's handwriting, a letter that seemed to be addressed to the future. The letter implied that her mother had made a major choice, leaving the past behind for the future, and that Reno had played a significant role in that decision. Chapter 6. The Truth. In the end, Reno revealed everything. He wasn't just the owner of an antique shop. The shop itself was a space between time, a place where memories gathered before they were completely lost. And Reno somehow had become its guardian. Nara's mother had been there to leave behind a difficult past, and Reno had helped her. Now, it was Nara's turn to choose whether she wanted to forget the past and move on, or stay longer and become a part of the shop. Nara chose to leave, but not to forget. He took memories, stories, and a pocket watch that was now ticking again. Reno smiled as Nara said goodbye, knowing that one day, perhaps the young man would return not as a visitor, but as a keeper of stories. Outside, the rain fell again, but this time, Nara was ready. The sky that morning was gloomy. Gray clouds hung low over the city, and the wind carried the scent of damp earth untouched by rain. At the end of Jalan Melati, a young man in a worn flannel shirt was walking alone, clutching a cell phone whose battery was nearly dead. As his eyes scanned the rows of old shops that seemed reluctant to be renovated, his name was Nara, a final year student on leave from college. He wasn't on an assignment or on a long journey. He was just walking, searching for something he didn't even know what it looked like. A clap of thunder echoed in the distance, and soon, light raindrops fell like a secret message from the heavens. Nara looked up for a moment, then quickened his pace, hoping to find shelter before his thin jacket became a dry rag. Across the street, his eyes caught a small shop between two larger buildings. The shop looked ancient, with a weathered wooden sign that read, "Without thinking." Nara crossed the street and pushed open the old glass door. A soft creak greeted her, followed by the sound of a small bell above the doorframe. As soon as she entered, the world seemed to change. The smell of rain and street dust disappeared, replaced by the scent of old wood, book covers, and coffee. "Welcome," a deep voice greeted her. Nara looked up. Behind the teakwood counter, filled with knickknacks, stood a slender, middle-aged man with round glasses and gray hair. His face was familiar, but not exactly familiar either. "Need shelter, or are you looking for something?" he asked calmly. Nara chuckled. "I think it's both." "Then, sit down. You can't fight the rain," he said, pointing to a wooden chair near an old bookshelf.